Well, hello, everybody out there in the YouTube recording space. I am actually recording this on, what is today? Thursday, August 21st, 2014. I would normally be recording an episode of Podcast Answer Man today, but there are two reasons why I am not. And reason number one is due to the fact that earlier this week, actually just 2 days ago, I put out episode number 370 of Podcast Answer Man, which is the audio recording of my closing keynote address at Podcast Movement. I felt so compelled to get that message out to as many people as possible, and so I decided to just go ahead and make that this week's episode of Podcast Answer Man. And if you have not yet done so, I encourage you to go to podcastanswerman.com/370 and have a listen to the closing keynote address that I gave there. If you have any hesitation about creating content, putting it out there, starting your podcast, I encourage you to go and listen to that talk. For those of you who are already seasoned podcasters and you feel like giving up at times, and sometimes you kind of feel like you've lost your passion for what you're doing, I encourage you to listen to it, because what I talk about in my closing keynote address was how to change the world. Literally make a difference in the people's lives who listen to your show, how you can have a positive, just an amazing impact in people's lives by following 4 strategies with your podcasting efforts. And so again, if you were not at Podcast Movement 2014, which by the way was awesome, and if you have not yet heard the audio recording of my talk, then I encourage you to go to podcastanswerman.com/370 and you can listen to that. Now, there is a second reason why I am not recording an episode of Podcast Answer Man today, and that is because I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera. Now, obviously, I record Podcast Answer Man, it's focused on pretty much audio only anyway. That's my intended audience. But I have enjoyed recording the companion live broadcast video along the way. But something happened to my Canon Vixia camera while I was in Dallas. I don't know what happened to it, but for whatever reason, my Canon camera, which I'm actually looking into right now, it has started to flake out on me. It just shuts itself off. It seems like if it's running on battery, it lasts a lot longer, and maybe it has something to do with the power cord, but you know what? I could tell you all the things I've troubleshooted. Troubleshooted? Is that the right word? Anyway, the things I've troubleshot. I don't know. Anyway, the things that I've done to troubleshoot and looking up things, it seemingly right now has no rhyme or reason. And I think it might be a good excuse for me to get a Canon Vixia HFG, I think, is it a G20 or a G30? I don't know what they are out with now. But the replacement of this camera has a really nice feature in that it will allow me to upgrade to the same body style of camera, I believe, but it will actually record in H.264 format. Now, the camera that I have right now, the Canon Vixia HFG10, is an amazing camera, but it records into this format called AVC, what is it? Hold on. AVCHD format. And for me to be able to make this useful, I have to actually record it in whatever format it records it on, then bring it over to my computer and convert it from AVCHD over to H.264 and then work with it. And it's a huge pain in the rear end to do anything. And that's why, honestly, I haven't done as much video as I want to do. Thankfully, this intensity, let's see if can I pull this up here without unplugging everybody and everything? No. Well, maybe you can just barely see this thing right here. Anyway, this is my Blackmagic Intensity Extreme Thunderbolt, and it does allow me to bring the video right out of the camera and bring it in via the mini HDMI to HDMI cable, and it allows me to broadcast live out to Ustream, and this has been very helpful to me, and I enjoy that. But for whatever reason, this camera is just shutting itself off. So far as I know, it has not yet shut itself off while on battery-only power. It's shut itself off with the battery in it with a solid 78 minutes worth of battery power and the power cable plugged in. It shuts itself off. with the battery taken out and power going into the Canon camera, it works for a little while, some random periods of time. Sometimes it's 90 seconds it shuts off. Or no, sometimes it's a minute and a half it shuts off. Yeah, that's 90 seconds. And then sometimes it's 3 minutes, and sometimes it's more than that. But on battery power alone, being the AC cable plugged in, it just randomly shuts off. So far with the battery and the power cable plugged in, it shuts off. And so far on battery only, it's lasting right now longer than normal, but I'm wondering if just in a few moments we're going to shut down. But that's okay. If things shut down, this live stream will continue because I can do this with my software. Let me go ahead and do it now. And right here, I should be able to come over to you. And matter of fact, it doesn't matter if I talk over here because now you are hearing me or you're seeing me from my Logitech camera. And you're hearing all the ambient noise in here. If you guys didn't notice there was an echo in here before, you certainly notice that there's an echo right now. Anyway, it's the Logitech C910 camera that I have right here does have stereo microphones on it, and so therefore it is picking up everything in the room. And this is a backup just in case my camera cuts off. So I'm going to switch back over. Give me 1 second here. And here I am. And now the audio should be back to a good sounding audio. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. I don't know why I'm going to continue to do this today. I think probably what I'm going to do is probably at some point, either during this broadcast or sometime later this afternoon, I am going to go ahead and order myself a replacement camera and get that in here just because I desperately need my cameras to work. So, and also at the same time, I'm hoping I can figure out what's going on with my HFG10, and so that I can have it maybe as a secondary camera that will be still useful for live streaming and that I can depend not to shut off on me. Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on. So again, I'm not recording this. This is not an episode of Podcast Answer Man. This is not getting recorded in audio. It will not be put in my RSS feed. But since I've already got an episode of Podcast Answer Man this week, and since I know that you guys expect me to be here at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays, I figured why not hang out with you guys? And this time, literally directly interact with you. And so I'm going to pull up the chat room. And Magnus says, OMG, that echo. Yes. Hopefully the echo is gone now. So I can actually, I'm going to unmute this and just hear what it sounds like. I'm going to pull up the chat. Yeah, so the echo's gone when I switched over to the other thing here. So I'm looking for you guys to interact with me. This show is going to be about the live audience. Thank you, Mike. Mike says, cool shirt. This is the podcast movement shirt here. Let me stand up. There we go. Thank you to Jared Easley, Dan Franks, Mitch Todd, Mitch Todd, and Gary Leland for putting on an amazing session of podcast movement. What an amazing conference for their first conference. Now, what I've done here is I fired up Skype, and some of you are on my Skype list. And if anybody wants to call in and ask questions, feel free to do that. And I would love to take your live calls. And for those of you who do not know my Skype ID, I'm putting it into the chat room right now. So feel free, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and add me on Skype, and I would love to take your live call. Now, the thing is the folks out there watching, and of course the recording of this, will only work as far as capturing the audio of the Skype call as long as the camera doesn't shut off. Because if the camera shuts off, it doesn't get the computer audio or the audio from the mixer that I'm sending in. But I'll work out all that. I even have a please stand by screen if I have to get up and reset the camera. So, yeah, I'm going to do that. I see that Zach Johnson is here. I think that's for an interview that we're doing later, though. So that's not necessarily a request, I don't believe, for the show here. So if anybody wants to, my Skype ID is right there. If you have a question, if you're too afraid to call in, which kind of crazy that people are still afraid to call in, if you want to type in a question, I'll answer any kind of questions that you have here. I don't have as much fun answering technical questions, but if you want to talk about mindset questions and business questions, I'd love that. Daryl Darnell's in the chat room. Daryl, I'd be happy to talk to you or anybody else. Just call me up on Skype and I'd love to talk to you guys. So anyway, Daryl in the chat room says, Cliff's keynote was amazing. It was my favorite session of Podcast Movement. Daryl, thank you so much. I had so much going into that session, my keynote address, that it was all I thought about the entire month of June, the entire month of July, the entire month leading up to the conference in August. It was all I thought about. What am I going to deliver to this audience? What am I going to give them? What message? Knowing the whole time that it was a closing keynote. I knew for a fact the number of people that I knew that were coming and the type of people that were coming. I just knew no matter how this conference went down, due to the people alone that were going to be there, that this was going to be a high energy, wonderful experience that everyone had for the entire 2 days. And I knew that I needed to be able to deliver something worthy of that. And so I probably put about 60 hours of preparation into it, and not preparation in the way that I thought I would have. I thought that I would have put preparation into maybe practicing, running through from beginning to end, trying to say word for word what I might say on the stage, and practicing and timing out each of the slides and how much time do I have for this and how much time do I have for that. But instead, most of my preparation was spent really getting to the heart of why am I saying what I'm saying and what point am I trying to get across, and then letting myself get out of the way. So that was what that was all about. Daryl says, by the way, Cliff, Corey told me that my session was his fave, but that was before your keynote. I'm thinking my session ended up being his second. All right. Chris Anderson says, I listened to Cliff's keynote yesterday. Was very moving, incredible, even inspiring even. Great work. Well, thank you, Chris. Mike says, I was there with my business partner. He was kind of skeptical about listening to you, Cliff. At the end, he was blown away by your presentation. He is a Cliff fan now. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So far, I'm not getting any live calls in here on my Skype. So what you have to do, I'm going to put my Skype ID in here one more time. Let me just type in this way. What you have to do in Skype is you have to create an account, and you have to click to add a friend, and you have to request that I add you as a friend before you can make a phone call to me via Skype if you guys want to. If you guys don't want to, I could just ramble on. I can talk for an hour with no problem at all. And I'm even armed with a bottle of water. So look out, people. Marty says, I listened to your audio keynote. Excellent, funny, and engaging. Thank you. Let's see here. Via audio podcast. You did get to the heart. Thank you, Cliff. Wish I could have been there at the conference. Glad your 10-person /6 session. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, Marty. And Barry says, hey, Cliff, maybe see if others are having trouble with Twitter analytics access. I saw that, Barry, and so far you're the only person that I've seen that's experienced that. And usually if it's widespread, I usually get about at least 10, 15, 20 people who all ask the same question. So I think it might be relatively lined up with what you've got going on there. And if not, I will, if I get 2 or 3 or 4 more people that ask about it, then we'll investigate further. Bob says, what do you think about Adam Carolla settling his podcast lawsuit? Well, this is certainly something I'll cover in the next episode of Podcast Answer Man. I don't think there are enough details right now for me to have a well thought out response, but I can give you my initial reaction. Number one, I think it's kind of a bummer. I think that he would have been armed with what's necessary to at least win the lawsuit, which would have been a victory for podcasters. At the same time, I don't know what settlement he made. We don't know this. We know that he didn't. We're almost certain that he did not pay anything to Personal Audio. But whatever he agreed to shutting down. And I think there is a time period of this clause where he's not allowed to talk about it. So maybe in the future there might be an opportunity to talk about it. I do know that the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, is not shutting down their pursuit to invalidate the patent. So that's not over. It's just that Adam Carolla is no longer pursuing the court in the desire that the court would invalidate the patent. So does this mean that personal audio could now sue other people in the future in the event that, one day podcasters are making enough money for it to be worth it to them? I suppose at this point right now that could be the case, and that's it's the overall vibe that I'm getting. But man, if Adam Carolla's not making enough money for personal audio to really consistently stay on top of that lawsuit, and if the other How Stuff Works networks and all those other ones, if they're not interested now, I don't know that we have anything to worry about in the future. But then again, I was never worried about the podcasting patent from the beginning. So my feeling about that has not changed at all. All right. So Mike Shell is here. I'll go ahead and take Mike's thing here, and Annabelle is here. So what we're going to do is, if you have asked to be added, I'll go ahead and give you a call. So let's see if we can get Mike on the line here. And if you guys will be prepared to have a question or either a conversation briefly, we'll do that. So Mike did not answer the call. Let's go ahead and see if Annabelle answers the call here. So he says, sorry, can't talk right now. So do me a favor, don't send me a request to add me as a friend unless you are able to talk. That would be helpful to kind of keep things all straight here. But, well, maybe Annabelle does not have anything either. But if you guys do want to talk, then do me a favor and go ahead and request to be added as a friend. I will add you, and then I'll tell you what, I'll let you guys call me. So if you have been added as a friend just now, feel free to call me with a question, or if you want to have some sort of conversation. Let's see here. Dave DeFore says, hey, gang, first time here in a long time for me. Well, Dave, glad to have you back, my friend. And we're not recording an episode of Podcast Answer Man right now, by the way. We're just having a live stream. So glad to have you here. Laura McClellan says, as a lawyer, I can tell you often clients will settle a lawsuit even if they think they'll win because the cost of litigation is so high. I don't blame Adam for settling. Yeah, good point on that one. I don't know. Again, we don't know all the details of everything that's going on. I do feel, however, though, if he would have continued fighting, that his community, including myself, not that I'm a part of his listening audience, but I'm certainly a part of the podcasting community as a whole that was willing to help contribute funds to fight. And I know that he was getting a lot of money to fight that battle. So I don't know if but we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And that's why until we get a little bit more details, I think if anything, we can say, hey, all lawsuits against all podcasters from personal audio have been dropped. And is that not a good thing? I think so. Yeah. All righty. So I am just waiting. Does anybody else have another question, another topic? Anybody want to call in? Either way. If not, I'll just continue to ramble on for a little bit, and I'll shut this stream down anytime when it seems like folks are getting bored, including myself. This is a test of a live stream, just playing around, doing nothing. I always, I've often been thinking about, I would love to do like a kind of my own Jimmy Fallon style show. I don't know how many of you have ever heard me talk about that before, but to do a live stream once a week that would actually add a lot of value. There'd be a lot of preparation going into it. There would be a whole set, kind of like what you see on The Tonight Show or what you saw with the Late Night with Jimmy Fallon show, having a couch, and people would travel to Cincinnati once a week to be on my show to talk about and share things that are entertaining, educational, encouraging, and inspirational. Things that people, a show every week that people would look forward to. And the purpose of the content would be to create content that's for video and that audience. I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about. It would not be podcasting focused. It would be more of the focus of mind and taking your life to the next level. the Late Night with Jimmy Fallon show, or actually it's the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon now. It's more focused on entertainment. The entertainment industry as a whole. And I would like to have a late night internet television show that really focused on entrepreneurship and business and adding value to people's lives. That a show that would talk about ministry and how to positively influence the world through who you're called to be, to really live out your purpose in life. It's about taking your life, your business, and everything you do in life to the next level. That's maybe it's the next level late night show. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I'd love to do. Any questions? You could set up a pad on the chair, and you know what? I could Skype people into that as well. Wouldn't that take up? Let's see. Wouldn't that take up a lot of time? The idea is that I do want to do something that takes up time, and that would be worth it. Anyway, Annabelle is here. Annabelle, how are you?
Hey, Cliff. I'm good. How are you?
I have never been better. It gets better every single day. So what's going on, and what's going on in your world?
Hold on, I'm just gonna delete the live feed because it was a little bit of an echo. I'm sorry. What was your question?
I said, what's going on in your world?
I just launched my podcast last week, so things are great. Made it to New and Noteworthy on day 2, so it was really super, super cool.
That's awesome. Congratulations on the new show. What's the show called?
It's called Pregnancy Perfect Podcast. And it's me interviewing women about their pregnancy journey. So had a little over almost 700 downloads the first day, which was totally surprising. So yeah, that's what it's about.
Great. And so for the folks that are watching this live stream, or they know somebody that's pregnant and wants to learn a little bit more about the content that you're sharing, where do they find you?
Pregnancyperfect.com.
Excellent. So do you have any questions or any comments or discussions?
I do. Yeah. So my space, I guess the women for my audience, they don't really know what a podcast is. So I have a piece on my website that says what is a podcast, kind of explaining what it is. So that way when women go on there, they can kind of get an idea. They're mostly used to bloggers, I think. So my question is, what would you recommend for me to do so that I can kind of explain to them what I'm trying to get them to come and listen to, because I'm reaching most of them via Instagram. Mm-hmm. I have a good audience there. And so they're just not used to a podcast. They're used to audio.
Well,
to a blog.
Yes. So one thing we could do is we can completely eliminate the word podcast. Let's all abolish it, right? Mm-hmm. No, if you know anything about me, you know that I am opposed.
You love the word.
I love the word podcast, and I think we should continue to call it a podcast. And what we have here, and I love what you said. How do I educate my audience? And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to educate our audience what a podcast is. Now, here's how I would handle that situation. So you're finding people on Instagram, you're finding people through all of maybe Tumblr, and you're finding people on Facebook and all these social media outlets, and they really have no idea what a podcast is. And so if you say, hey, come check out my podcast, you are, in essence, setting up a barrier for all those people who have no clue what it is. Because you say this word, and it might as well be Klingon, and they have no clue what you just said. Right. So what I would do in that scenario is say, hey, guys, check out my internet radio show, or check out my audio blog, or you can use any of those things that will clearly communicate that you have something on your website that somebody can listen to. So you could say, hey guys, today I created another audio post that you should check out right here on this topic. And make sure that topic is something that is so necessary for them to hear, that they can't live without, that they're going to click the link and then come to your post on your site and click the play button. And then maybe maybe in the first line of your post, you have that catchphrase that really captures people's attention. And the second or third sentence says, and in today's audio podcast, I speak about this, this, and this. Click the play button above. And so what you've done there is you've gotten people in without confusing them about what a podcast is. And you've already said, that this is an audio post. They're getting that. They understand that they're coming there for some audio content that you've recorded. You may have said internet radio. You may have said any of those things. And now in the wording, you're communicating, click the play button. You may have dropped the podcast word in there. And see, here's the thing. I always secretly introduce the word podcast. So when I meet somebody face to face, what I do is they say, so tell me, what do you do? And I say, well, I actually make a living creating online radio. I teach people how to take whatever their passion is and create audio content so people all over the world can listen to it. I don't say I'm a podcast consultant.
Right, because sometimes they don't even know what a podcast is.
Exactly. And so what I do is I get them interested in the fact that I create audio content that anyone in the world can listen to, including themselves. And what I do is I usually try to find a topic that they're interested in. And then I say, what you should do is you should come to my site and have a listen. And then what I do is throughout my content, I'm consistently referring to myself as a podcast. Thank you tuning into this new podcast episode of this, or, I don't hide the fact that what I have is a podcast. And I love what you have. You have a page on your site that says, what is a podcast? What is this? And as long as that clearly communicates to folks, what a podcast is, and that, hey, this is something that you don't have to come here every time. There are these applications on your phone that allow this to be instantly delivered to you every time I have a new post.
Yeah, I think I made it user-friendly in the sense that, like on Instagram, since I have about 1,300 followers there, literally put up a picture of like Stitcher Radio and the podcast app right next to each other and gave them directions on how to go to download the app, and that's how you can find me.
Yeah.
And so there's downloads, and it's been very well received and things like that. So I think it was just mostly explaining what it is they're even tuning into.
The interesting thing about that is that you're doing a great job of introducing new people to the world of podcasts. So if you if we all toss out the word podcast and say, it doesn't matter, well, let's forget about that. All that matters is that they listen to our content. Doesn't matter how they listen to it.
Yeah.
So if maybe you convince people that you have great content and now they're subscribed to your blog, or they favorited or bookmarked your site, and they come to it to see how often, every now and then, just to see if you have a new post that they can listen to or read. Well, how selfish is that in my mind, that you have this amazing knowledge about how their lives could be changed, not just through your content, but man, they could actually find other content that they can listen to in the car, that they could listen to while they're working out, walking the dog, all these different things. And if you become the person who introduces them to the world of content that's available, life-changing content, these people will become your lifelong friends. They will always remember you're the first podcast they ever listened to. You're the first person who explained what this was, and now forever their lives will be changed. And that's how passionate I am about the technology of podcasting, is because it can be delivered in such a way. And so, that's what I would do. I would educate my audience on what podcasts are in that way. But I would make sure that the word podcast is never something that becomes a stumbling block. Instead, it's something that I ease them into.
Yeah. It's the title. It's in the title of my podcast show.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, perfect. Thanks so much for that. And I did email you last night, Cliff, because you asked a couple weeks ago before I launched to send you the episode, because I have April Flynn as my first guest.
I have that.
Yeah. So whenever you want to take a listen, that'd be great. So, let me know what you think.
So let me just tell everybody. So, folks, Pat Flynn, many of you out there know who Pat Flynn is. He's a great friend of mine. And his wife, April, really doesn't do a lot of interviews. But Annabelle emailed me and says, listen, one of my first interviews on my podcast is April Flynn, Pat's wife. So again, tell folks one more time, where can they find your podcast, and what episode is April in?
April is episode number 1, and you guys can find it at pregnancyperfect.com. And thanks for supporting it.
Awesome. Thank you, Annabelle.
Thanks so much, Cliff. I appreciate your call.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. That went extremely well. Thank you for that. And it looks like Robert Hatfield has just requested friendship here. And so if he wants to call in, that's fine. I've got a couple more folks in here. Again, I'll put my Skype ID into the chat room. Anything you guys want to talk about, just throw it into the chat room box there. Let's see here. Jason Griffin says, your PM closing keynote was great. Daryl mentioned, but was wondering what your favorite presentation that you attended at the podcast movement. Good question. My favorite, let me go ahead and, is it Robert or Bob?
Hey, it's Robert.
Robert, I'll be right with you, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
All right, thanks. So my favorite topic, or my favorite presentation, I'm going to sound egotistical, but my favorite presentation that I attended was the panel session that I did with Chris Brogan and Michael Stelzner. And that's because of the kind of content. It was another episode. It was another session that really got to the heart of why we do what we do, and I'm really keen on that. There's a lot of sessions on how to use your podcast to generate leads for your business, and how to monetize your podcast so you can make more money. How to do these things. There was a lot of that stuff. And that stuff, I'm not opposed to that. I use a lot of that in my business. But my favorite topics are the ones that really get down to the heart of why we do what we do, and seeking out serving others first. Let me think. Outside of any session that I was a part of, I'm going to say something. I was a part of the sport. I attended the sports panel discussion, and those of you who know me know that is a shocking thing, because I absolutely despise sports. I can't stand them. They're a total bore to me, except for poker. I love Texas Hold'em poker. That's the greatest sport that's ever existed. But anyway, it was Marshall Stevenson, and he's into hockey podcasting. There was another podcaster there that did Major League Baseball. There was a woman who actually had a woman's fantasy football podcast. So she did all about fantasy football, and from a women's fan perspective. And I attended that session for one reason and one reason only, just to support my friend Marshall Stevenson. But I sat in the front row and I took notes, and I really enjoyed that session because they were doing it for the love of the podcast. They were doing something that each of them were passionate about. And you could tell that that's why they were doing what they're doing. So that was another favorite session of mine. Eric J. Fisher, who is a close personal friend of mine, he did a great session. It had a really weird title, How to Brand Yourself with Bacon or something like that. But in spite of the title, the session and the topics that he shared were very relevant as well. And it is all about brand. How do you brand yourself, and how do you create content that sticks with people, and that was a good session. I'm trying to think, what other sessions? I attended a lot of sessions. There was a couple sessions that I attended where I didn't agree with some of the things that were said from the stage. I don't necessarily think that I should probably broadcast my thoughts on those things out into the public, because my mama always told me, if you ain't got something nice to say, don't say it at all. Anyway, let's go over to Robert here. And Robert, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm well. How are you today?
I've never been better.
Awesome. Well, let me just say I appreciate all that you do. I've never interacted with you personally, but I've purchased the WordPress for Podcasters tutorial that you have, and love it. It's helped me out a lot. It helped me get started podcasting, so I appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. So tell me about your podcast.
Sure. Well, I'm a minister, and there were several friends and I who got together and said, you know what, there's a lot of sermon podcasts out there that are basically just syndicated sermons. But there's not a lot of content out there that is content that has been generated specifically for the podcasting space, at least not in our brotherhood. And so because of that, we decided to get together, and each of us sort of took on some podcasts and split up the work and started what has essentially become a network over the past year and a half or so. And so I host a podcast called Preachers in Training that's all about helping us take our preaching, as you might say, to the next level. So
Excellent.
I'm enjoying it.
Wonderful. So it's called Preachers in Training, and where can you find it at?
The website for the network is thelightnetwork.tv.
All right. The Light, Light,
That's right.
network.tv.
Yes, sir.
And so very cool. Do you have a question or any kind of topic you want to discuss?
Yeah, so I have a question. We've had people, and right now, this is just kind of a startup. We just kind of done it on our own. We've paid the Libsyn fees and Bluehost fees, just kind of divided and conquered the cost there. It's not a lot of overhead, as you know. But we have had people who have inquired about, hey, we'd like to support the work. We'd like to help through financial donations and things like that. We don't have anything specifically set up and in place. None of us have ever really gone this kind of entrepreneurial route. We're interested in turning this Light network, taking it up a notch, and we were trying to look into sort of making it like a small business so that we could sell products and things that we as ministers produce from time to time. But we don't know where to begin. And so we've looked at just some research online, LLCs and things like that, but we just don't have a lot of experience there, and wondering what insight you might have in this regard.
Yeah, so I certainly know where you're going with that, and there are a lot of different opportunities for you. The one thing you could do is, if you have your own products and services, I think these are always the best way to monetize efforts, because they allow you to have the greatest profit, if you will. There's very little overhead, especially when it comes to like audio products or ebook digital products, and also webinars and various tutorials. Like, for example, you said that you went through my WordPress for Podcaster tutorial. I recorded that, a couple years back. It's very thorough, in depth, and I haven't touched that since it was online. And literally hundreds upon hundreds of people who have paid $100 a piece, and it doesn't cost me anything extra to do that. I use a service called eJunkie for my shopping cart, and that cost me a total of a whopping $18 per month. Flat fee. I use PayPal Website Payments Pro, which cost me a total flat fee of $30 per month. This allows me to take real-life credit cards. Instead of saying, well, yes, you can pay via credit card through PayPal, instead, what I can do is actually have a PayPal payment API, or payment gateway. And PayPal is the company that I'm using, but when people are checking out in my shopping cart, they can choose PayPal or they can choose credit card. And when they're choosing credit card, they're actually choosing my my PayPal Website Payments Pro product. And that allows me to allow them to directly enter a credit card without any kind of association to PayPal whatsoever. And all of those funds, by the way, go directly into my PayPal account, and it's almost instantaneous. And it's not a per transaction fee plus an additional. It's almost the same as having a payment via PayPal. So it's about 2.9 to 3.1%, right around there. And the cool thing by using eJunkie as my shopping cart and PayPal Website Payments Pro, we're talking under $50 a month, flat fee, and there's no limit to the number of transactions I can have that way, which is really awesome. So that's how I do things. I create my own products and I sell them using those tools, and that's how I get my stuff out to the masses. Now, there are various other solutions for that. Now, another thing that you said, some people want to contribute and stuff like that. Yeah. And one of the things that you could do is you could open up the ability for people to donate money to you. Now, one of the things that you could do is just go over to PayPal and get a PayPal donate button. And the potential drawback of just a PayPal donate button is, again, there are some people who just don't want to use PayPal. For whatever reason, they don't trust PayPal. I've been using PayPal since PayPal first started, and I've never experienced a problem with PayPal. Although I've heard horror stories of people who have, and because of those horror stories and the voice that those people have, they actually, have scared a lot of people from the service. So not everybody's going to want to contribute via PayPal. So you need to have some option for people to sign up to automatically generate a payment to their credit card if that's what they want to do. So in that case, you could have a PayPal button and you go back to eJunkie. So I could actually create an eJunkie product in my eJunkie shopping cart system called one-time contribution. And what I could do is I could say, leave the dollar field blank, and they can actually enter the amount that they want to do, and then create an add to cart button and make that available. It's a little bit geeky and technical, but you can do all of this stuff yourself, very low cost, and keep a majority of all of that income.
Awesome.
Another option that I want to tell you about is Patreon. And Patreon is something that I haven't yet personally tried myself, but it's been on my to-do list to give it a shot. And Patreon is a place where you can go and set up an account with them, create a page for whatever services you have, or like for your podcast or for your network, and you create a little video describing why people should consider, supporting you. And the idea behind Patreon is saying, listen, this content that I'm creating, it's going to be created anyway, and it's going to be made available for free. But if you feel strongly that this content should be created and you want to participate and contribute, let's say, a certain amount per episode or a certain amount per month, then feel free to do so. You'll be considered one of our patrons. And I think they keep probably somewhere between 6 to 10% or something like that of that. But they handle all of the credit card transactions. They do all of the billing, and they simply pay you a payment once per month, which is pretty sweet deal. I know a bunch of people who are using Patreon. So far, everybody I know that's using has had a pretty good experience with them. They're amazing people that have reached out to me and talked to me for hours about it. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet on any of my own projects, but hopefully that helps you.
Sure. Yeah, great. I appreciate it.
Alrighty. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Have a good day. All right, so let's see here. I think, Marty, you may be the only person that the video went out on. I don't see any notice from anybody else, and I'm also monitoring it here on my end, but everything seems to be okay. Thank you for letting me know, though. Now, is there anybody else that wants to call in? It looks like Vernon is here, so I'm going to accept Vernon. And Vernon, if you want to give me a call, let me just type in here. Ready for a call if you want to call in. So there we go. I'll put that in there and see if Vernon calls. By the way, if anybody else has questions, let me know. Let's see. Fish in the chat room is saying you need a tax code and a business PayPal account in order to accept donations, correct? I don't recall needing a business account to accept donations. It's been a very long time. But, so I don't know that. It's been so long ago. But you do need a business ID and a tax code and a business website to be able to set up that Website Payments Pro that I was talking about. But that can be done. Let's see what Vernon has to say here. Vernon, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I have never been better. It gets better every single day.
Oh, that's good to hear. Quick question for you. Maybe this is getting too mundane. We're starting a podcast where I work for a distance learning school, so all of our students are all over. And so one of the big hurdles is that they feel disconnected. So ideally, the podcast is really to try and bring them connected and get them connected with their profs and their peers, an interview-based podcast. But I wondered if there's a specific reason, as far as like the intro is concerned. I know a lot of the bigger podcasts do a specific intro where they've hired a voice talent. And then music. Is it a good idea to keep that all consistent? I guess I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, so I'm hearing a couple different things. Let me see if I heard you correctly. First, I heard that you have students all over the place, and they don't feel connected. And then I hear you asking about a bunch of different shows from different professors, and should it be consistent? Where in your mind, tell me, do you think that the audio branding of the different shows would have any impact on how connected the students feel to each other?
I'm sorry, maybe that was a little confusing. It's going to be one podcast. I was saying from all the other podcasts I listen to, they all have a very similar introduction. They have the same music. Does that, and I guess I'm asking more, is that just to brand the show so that the show feels connected?
Okay, so you're asking, you're going to create a podcast. It's not created yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to be creating a podcast, and it's going to be introducing the professors to and their message to the students to help them engage with them, to feel a little bit more closely connected. And you're wondering, do you need audio branding to be like the rest of the shows out there? Because that's what you consistently hear over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure I understood the question.
Yeah,
the answer to
that's
the question is it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It really does not matter. Creating a professional audio branding can lend some credibility and some professional sound to a show and kind of really set things up. It also can take the pressure off of the host to communicate every single episode opening the show, what this show is about and stuff like that. Now, for me, I've been doing podcasting for long enough. It's not a problem for me to say, well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this is the podcast devoted to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level. Doesn't matter if you're brand new to the content creating world, if you've been creating content every single day, there's something we can all do to take everything we do in life to the next level. I can say that in my sleep.
Right.
But if you have a professor who all of a sudden says, I'm not a radio guy, I'm not this broadcaster, what am I doing? I don't want to say that every week.
Yeah.
Then what I want to now, I did this. Where did I do? No, this was actually in my talk. This was in my panel session. Oh my gosh, I so wish I could have found some way to include this in my closing keynote in front of the entire audience. But I'm going to tell people to go to pornfreeradio.com.
Started to scare me a little bit.
Yes, and in my panel session, I said, not freepornradio.com. It's pornfreeradio.com. This is one of my students from my Podcasting A to Z course, and I'm going to click play on episode number 16. I'm hoping he has not yet found audio branding that he's happy with. All right, so let me play this and let you hear what it sounds like.
Okay.
Porn Free Radio, episode 16. Welcome to Porn Free Radio. I'm Matt Dobschutz. Porn Free Radio is the podcast for people who want to get free from porn addiction. In this episode, we're talking about escaping porn addiction with my friend, life coach Craig Para, founder of the Mindful Habit Method of porn and sex addiction recovery. Let's get started. Craig, welcome to Porn Free Radio.
Oh, thank you, Matt. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I love talking to other men that are out there inspiring.
So there you go. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
No music whatsoever. He hit the record button and boom, here I am. This is what the show's about. This is what we're talking about today. Let's get started. You can do it like that, and he's done that for 16 episodes, and let me tell you, that sounds a whole lot better than what he had set up as his first attempt at creating some audio branding around his podcast.
Sure.
And in the podcast episode, in the Podcasting A to Z course, I said you'd be better off doing nothing than using that. and he agreed, and so did everybody else in the course. And he's been 16 episodes now. I don't know that he's actually even pursuing audio branding at this point. It's not necessary. It's not essential that you have it. Does it add a little bit of flair? Absolutely. Let me play for you. This is, Family from the Heart. I will tell you, I'm very good at doing intros, but Family from the Heart was a show every single week that, I said something different every week and really wasn't feeling it. I just wanted to start talking to my wife. And so this is what we decided to do with Family from the Heart instead.
Welcome to another episode of The Family from the Heart, a podcast that is devoted to giving you a behind-the-scenes look into the lives of the Ravenscraft family, a family that has given up on the ordinary to pursue the lives for which they were created. Now, here are your hosts, Cliff and Stephanie.
So there you go. And then I let them do that. It keeps the pressure from introducing the show to the audience. It keeps it off of my shoulders and allows me to just play that and say, well, we are back here. This is Cliff, and she says, and this is Stephanie, and we just start talking. And,
Sure.
And so it depends on really what you want to do with your show. But the purpose of your podcast, the reason why for your podcast is so that your students who are sporadically spread throughout the world
Right.
can hear the voice and the heart of the professors that are teaching them, hear their stories, their personal lives, and stuff like that. And what happens in the first 30 seconds of that audio, of that podcast episode, doesn't make a difference. As long as they get through that
Sure.
and hear the heart of the professors, it's going to allow you to get those people a little bit more closely engaged and connected and feel like they can come to know, like, and trust those professors and want to engage with them on a deeper level.
Yeah. Awesome.
that
That's
help?
some great advice. Yeah. Thanks so much, Cliff. I know it's kind of a mundane question, but I really appreciate your help. So
No problem at all. I'm glad for it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vernon.
yeah, of course.
All right, so there we go. The phone lines are back open again. Operators are standing by. No. If anybody wants to contact me, I am crazy putting my Skype ID into the chat room once again. If you guys want to add me on Skype, and if I accept you, feel free to just jump right in. Any other questions or feedback here on the chat room? I'm looking there as well. So let's see here. Steve says, Matt, Porn Free Radio was in my April 2014 A to Z classmate. A great guy, and his podcast talks about interesting aspects of addiction and psychology. So there you go. Very cool. Anybody else? Any other topics you want to throw? Now, here's the deal. The video coming from Ustream is usually about 20 seconds behind my video on average. It can be a little bit longer than that at times, depending on how long people have had the web page opened up. So I'm still waiting to see if they want to call in with another question. And while I wait, what will I talk about? Yeah, I'll just say this: I'm having fun doing this. This is interesting. I don't think that I would want to do this for Podcast Answerman, the podcast. But as far as doing a live Ustream and putting this out as a video, I could get used to doing something like this every now and then. I like the live call-ins. Although I've done live call-in shows before, and it's gone terribly wrong too, without having a call screener. But thankfully, I do have some ability to hang up on people if that's necessary. All right, so I'm still gonna wait for another person here to call me. It looks like there's something in here in the chat room that I'll read and discuss. But if you want to discuss something, if you want to ask a question, again, please know this does not have to be related to podcasting. If you want to talk about business, that's my favorite topic, by the way, to talk about business. Let me share with you, my favorite topics in the world are to talk about the mindset shift between being an employee and becoming a self-employed business owner. That's the kind of stuff that I love to talk about most. If you have to call in about a question or a topic related to podcasting, that's cool too. I've got plenty of experience with that, but let me go ahead and see if I can see what these questions are in here, because there are several. Several topics in here anyway. I'll kind of do a screen grab on that, and let's see here. So Jason Bryant says, Cliff, not sure if you discussed this earlier. I got here 25 minutes after you started. What can a podcaster who isn't trying to be in the entrepreneur portion of podcasting get from going to Podcast Movement? You can get relationships with other people who are podcasters who understand the world that you're in. There are the first conference this year did seem to have a very strong focus on people who wanted to monetize their podcast or from the entrepreneurial space. Not everybody was in that camp or in that crowd. So there are sessions at the event that are not focused on how to make money or how to turn this into your business. Like I said, you weren't here, but one of the sessions that I sat in on was on sports fan podcasting. Doing a fan podcast about a sports team or a specific sporting event such as football or hockey. But yeah, so there are other topics out there. There are other people out there who have various different reasons for podcasting. I think it'll even be more diverse next year, and so I encourage you to certainly check that out. Yeah, it's definitely worth going. But the relationships are the biggest thing, and relationships are all. You never know what's going to happen as a result of those relationships. So I'm going to put my Skype ID in there one more time, just before I go into the next one here. Vernon says, really glad you're doing this, Cliff. Thanks so much. It's really meaningful how much you invest in your audience. Well, thank you so much, Vernon. I really appreciate that feedback. All right, Fish says, for a particular niche, sports podcast is relatively new and looking for specific download numbers in Libsyn. Are there specifics I should be looking for to analyze how well or poor I'm doing? Statistics are one of the things that I least focus on. What I instead do, Fish, is I actually look at the number of people who are downloading my show and say, do I have a good relationship with? Do I have a good handle on having a relationship with a minimum of 10% of my audience? Can I tell you the first name and the last name, or personal details about their lives? These are the kind of things that I want to know. Can I pull up, just off the top of my head, let me just name some people. Troy Price. I'm not looking at anything. Troy Price lives in Frankfort, Kentucky, and has been listening to our podcast since the Lost podcast days. Eric J. Fisher. Well, you guys, it's too easy. He's too close of a friend. Let me just think of another random person. David Dufour. I think David's in the chat room today. He says that today he's here for the first time in a very long time. David Dufour has a podcast where I believe he does a podcast about speech and debate, and he actually has a business where he trains people in that area. And I do see that it's actually telling me I need to change my battery pack. Did you guys see that? But anyway, how do you judge how well you're doing is whether or not, hey, do you have people who listen to you now, and are you creating content that they love? And that's how I judge that. You know what I'm going to do? Now, here's the deal. I've been broadcasting for a long time. For those of you who have kind of just joined in, we have a video camera problem I'm trying to diagnose. And here, this entire time, I don't know how long have I been broadcasting right now or recording. So it looks like I'm recording for 56 minutes without my camera shutting off, which, by the way, is a record. So I'm going to go plug in my power cord right at this very moment. And if I plug in my power cord and then it shuts off, I know that it's something going on with that power supply. So anyway, I do need to do that. And because of that, I'm going to do this. Please stand by. Don't go away. All right, and let's see here. Can I do this and do that? And I'm back. All right, so hopefully my camera will stay on. I'm not completely sure. We'll see. Now, matter of fact, I'm going to... Now, if the camera and the audio goes away, please, whatever you do, don't go away. Stand by. I'll switch it over to another camera, and I'll restart my thing. But I'm starting my stopwatch to kind of get a gauge for how long it takes before my camera shuts off, assuming it's going to shut off now. So it seems like my camera is going to shut off each time I go to plug in my power adapter. And so if that's the case, then what I'll do is I'll get a new power adapter and see if a new power adapter will keep that from happening. And if that's the case, then I will have solved it. And if I can go on battery power and not experience this problem, then what I'll do is I'll probably go ahead and buy an extra capacity battery and maybe or two, and use those and swap them. And I can still use this as a live camera, streaming camera, even if the power adapter. But we'll see how things go. So far, I mean, this camera has not shut off at all yet. And the longest it's actually stayed running since I've been experiencing this issue has been, I think it's been like 8 minutes or something like that. So within 8 minutes, if the stream goes black and my audio cuts off, stand by. I'll switch over to a different camera and it'll have that bad audio. All right. So let's see here. Here's another question. Did I finish the last question? The last question was something about the numbers. So let me get back to that question. So the numbers. How do you know if you're doing good? Success is defined by you. Is your mind is in your mind having success? Is that thousands of people? Well, then you know how well you're doing related to that. On average, a brand new podcast, and I've worked with thousands of podcasters. On average, within, let's just say 6 months, you should probably, most any podcast can have anywhere between 300 to 600 subscribers. just about any podcast, unless you're super, super niche, like, you're only looking to touch, if your podcast is devoted to the franchisees of the Blinds Factory, and the people who are franchisee owners of the Blinds Factory. Well, obviously, you're not going to have hundreds of people subscribe to your podcast. But if, in that case, if you have 10 of those people, maybe that's a success. So we could talk numbers all day long. It doesn't matter. The question is are you satisfied with the fact that, man, anybody out there, is there anybody in this world that is listening to what I have to say every single week when I put out a new episode? And I think if there's 5 people out there who actually give a rip about what I have to say, how blessed am I? If there's 20 people out there who gives a rip about what I say, how blessed am I? There are 28 people, 29 people who are on this live stream right now. And do I wish there were 10,000 people right now? I don't care about that. What I care about right now is you. Seriously, that's what I care about. And this, I think, is how you build your brand. This is how people come to know, like, and trust you. The question is, if I were the only person Cliff was talking to right now, would he still be doing what he's doing? And the answer to that question is yes. If you were the only person right now, I'd still be talking to you. If you were the only person in the chat room, I'd be answering your questions. I'd be talking to you. That's what I'd be doing today. And that's what I'm here to do. So that's my thinking. And as far as I'm concerned, today, my live show Thursday, live broadcast, this is not an episode of Podcast Answer Man, but what I'm doing today is just a success. And by the way, I happen to know this. After I release this video, it's going to be viewed by about 600 or 700 people. That's nowhere near as many people who would listen to this if I were to take the audio of it and put it in my podcast feed. But am I going to take this and put it in my podcast feed? No, because I decided today I already have an episode this week. It's my closing keynote. That's what I want. That's what's most important for those people to get today. But today I'm doing this for 29 people in the chat room and about 700 people max that are probably going to watch this afterwards. And is that success? In my mind, you're still listening to me. You're still watching me. It's success to me. So that's how I gauge how well I'm doing. And I hope to encourage you to do the same. All right. There is still time. If you want, you can call me on my Skype ID. All you have to do is type in my Skype ID, add me as a contact. I'll add you in here, and I'll be happy to take your live call. If you have a topic, a question you want to share. For those of you who are afraid to do that right now, feel free to type in a question or a topic into the chat room. I love business mindset questions, employee versus employer, the transitioning from getting paid as an employee to doing your own business. I love those kind of questions. I'm not afraid to take more podcasting questions as well. But just know that you can either type your questions into the chat room or you can call them in via Skype. All right. Barry said also, he says, Cliff, what is a podcasting topic that you're surprised hasn't gotten more coverage out there? What niches are currently underfilled? Well, first of all, I don't think there's any niche that's currently underfilled. All right. I think that, I don't think there's any niche that's overfilled. And this is contrary to what some people out there are saying. Now, some people will tell you the world does not need another entrepreneurial daily interview podcast. Have you heard people say that? I have. Have I felt like saying that? Yeah. But is that true? The answer is no. The world needs whatever it is that is the most important message you have on your heart. The problem I have with all of these entrepreneurial podcast, or the interview format podcasts that do nothing more than interview entrepreneurs, is because 8 out of 10, maybe even 9 out of 10 of them are nothing more than copycats. They're nothing. They're absolutely they're carbon copies of what everybody else is doing. And in fact, they're just some of them are, not all of them, I would say maybe 3 out of 10 of them are following a formula hoping to get rich just like somebody else they know. And I think that's a ridiculous reason to start podcasting. And so for those people out there, yeah, do you need to create content like that? No. However, if your greatest passion in life is helping people understand that they can find or create their own work that they love, that gives them the greatest sense of fulfillment and purpose in their life, and to encourage people on what it takes to be successful as a small business owner, should you create a podcast if that's your greatest heart's passion? Absolutely. Should it be interview format? Well, let me share my thoughts on interview format. I don't think you have to have a format that you tell people about. By the way, why does that not there? I'm getting a little self-conscious about not having my lower third down there because I want people to know about my podcasting A to Z course. Anyway, no, actually, I'm just trying to cover up and distract people from my gut. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, where was I at? Format. I don't think you have to call yourself an interview show. You don't have to call yourself, a solo show. You don't have to be a co-hosted show. You can just be a show and do some interviews when you feel like doing interviews. Do solo when you feel solo. If you feel like you're a little lonely every now and then, you want to bring in a social media correspondent like your friend Eric J. Fisher, then by all means, bring in Eric. But you don't have to follow any kind of format. Now, those are the most common formats that you can consider and pursue and stuff like that. But man, if you started out and you're doing a bunch of interviews and you find out, you know what, I just don't like talking to these people, then stop talking to them and just talk yourself. Don't be afraid to be your own expert that you bring into the show and all of that stuff. So, so if it's your heart's desire to create a podcast that promotes entrepreneurship, then by all means, who cares if there's 50,000 other ones out there? And that is an exaggeration, but almost not. There's a lot of them. Now, is everybody going to raise to the top of the iTunes rankings and ratings and all that stuff? It doesn't matter. You can have a powerful impact in people's lives. You can positively change this world with 300 people who subscribe to your show, with 100 people who subscribe, with 5 people who subscribe to your show. You can have a powerful, positive difference in people's lives. And by the way, with only 1,000 people who follow your brand, who are loyal followers, you can make a living doing just about anything. I really do believe that. So, is there anything that's underfilled? Why ask the question, is there a niche that's underfilled? Well, if you're asking that question, it's like, well, is there a missing piece out there that maybe you should jump on the bandwagon on? Get there, you maybe be the first one. It's like, I don't like thinking about doing that because I would recommend that, it's like, what does underfilled mean? It's like, that means, well, nobody else is talking about it. Well, the question is, why would you talk about it? Would you create the podcast just because nobody is and you're the first in? That's not, in my mind, the greatest reason for starting a podcast. Instead, start a podcast about the topic that you're most passionate about, something that you can't think of, you can't stop talking. People told me once, they says, Cliff, find something you love to do so much that you'd be willing to do it all day long for free. Then become so excellent at doing that one thing that people would be willing to pay you to do it. And that is how I've built my business. Doing the things that I love most. And let me tell you, I did it for years for free. I did it for years without chasing money. And what I can tell you is I became so great at what I was doing, people started begging me to teach them, to pay me to teach them, to all of this other stuff. And so, yeah, don't worry about what's underfilled. Follow what's not being filled in your heart by not putting that content out to the world. And regardless of how much competition is or is not there, pursue that content. What topic am I surprised? Troy Price from Frankfurt, by the way, says there are not enough podcasts about wooden boots. Exactly. And that's an inside joke. And I love that he knows what that's all about. Anyway, so is there a topic that I'm surprised that doesn't come up more often? I don't know. Yeah, so as promised, there went my video from my camera. I think my camera has just shut off. And so bear with me for just a moment while I see if I can get it booted back up here. So please stand by. And by the way, you're going to hear everything that happens in this room because it's going to be echoing like crazy. So let's see. Turn. Oh. And so now this is different. So the power light is blinking red really fast. Let me just write that down. So power light is blinking really fast. Power light blinking fast. Red. All right. And let's see. We may tap on here. Yep, we're back. Okay. Anyway, so let's see here. How long did that take? So that was about 13 minutes. So 13 minutes. And we'll hit reset. And let's hit start again. We'll see how long we go this time. Doing some testing here, trying to figure out what's going on, troubleshooting my camera. But anyway, not going to let the technical difficulties deter me here. So I think I made all my points on those things. Yeah, I don't know what topics haven't been discussed. I deal with a lot of topics over the years. I'm almost to 400 students who have taken podcasting A to Z, by the way. 400 students who have gone through A to Z and answering their unlimited number of questions for 4 weeks in time. And then I've actually worked with literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people one-on-one since December 2006. Actually, it's a little earlier than that. That's when December 2006 was when I finally launched Podcast Answer Man, but I started helping people one-on-one before that. All right. Let's see here. I have no money, but I would love to start my own podcast about sports. Patrick, you can do it today. You seriously can. Matter of fact, you want to create a podcast just about sports and not worry about money or anything? Go to audioboo.com. Audioboo.com and record a once a week 5-minute audio podcast on sports. You can do it for free. And Audioboo takes care of everything, and you can even submit your RSS feed from Audioboo to iTunes if you want to, or you can take your RSS feed from. And once again, there went my camera. It died out on me, so it was a minute and a half. So we know. By the way, look, I can just look at you guys here now. Anyway, you can go to Audioboo if you want, and you can basically take the RSS feed from there and take it over to FeedBurner and take that FeedBurner feed and send it to iTunes. And by the way, all of that's covered over at learnhowtopodcast.com. Again, that's learnhowtopodcast.com. You can find out how to do all that stuff as a hobby for free. The information about Audioboo is not there, but the video at the end talks about Posterous. Posterous is no longer available. They shut it down. But Audioboo is still out there, and you could use Audioboo. I think it's audioboo.fm or I should just Google Audioboo. Audioboo. I don't know if I can actually do anything. The camera's probably going to, cancel out on me anyway. So anyway, I think this is going to do it. I think I'm going to wrap up here. It's been just over an hour and some odd time. I think that I have discovered that there's something going on there. I'm going to see if I can maybe contact the support department of Canon and find out what that blinking red light means, because that's what's causing it to, when it shuts off, it blinks red like that, like crazy, which is interesting. It seems like it only does it when the power is plugged in. I can go, at least I've went, 53 minutes? How long was it? I think it was 53 minutes. Let me just put it on here, 53 minutes. I did 53 minutes without it cutting off, going on battery power, so that I learned that today. I certainly enjoyed having you guys here in the live chat. If you've enjoyed this, and you would like me to do more of these, just really addressing you in video and stuff like that, let me know in the chat room. That would be great, saying, yes, please do this again, Cliff, and I'll see what I can do. And for those of you who, now for just a moment, I'm specifically talking to those of you who are watching on YouTube or watching the YouTube video of this. Do me a favor and please use the comment section below, whether you're on the YouTube page, whether you're on Facebook and seeing this embedded in Facebook, whether you're seeing it on Google+, or I'm going to actually probably make this a video blog post. I just saw spit go through the air. Anyway, wherever you happen to be, there should always be a comment section below. If you would like to see more of this, me addressing you and taking live calls and all that fun stuff, if you would like some more of this, please let me know in the comment section below, and I'll make it a point to do a little bit more of these. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, with that, I am going to turn everything off here and see what I can do now with this new information I found out about my Canon HF-G10 video camcorder, and I think I'm probably going to go ahead and order that new version and get it on its way. So God bless. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level.